forward steps you could take to see some movement on that. Now, the question will be, do you like the steps? Most likely the answer will be, you don't really like them in the moment. And that's kind of the whole idea of this thing is like the work that it may take to get you there. Really, it's like you got to do some of that. We can give perspective, direction, whatever, but you got to shoulder the responsibility for yourself. And back to the whole idea of like a call out room, like that's allowing someone else to shoulder your decision making responsibilities so that you can advocate that off of yourself. And I don't think that's a good habit to build. So I was laying in my bed, and this is the story I was trying to get to. Last one. I said that a minute ago. I was laying in my bed listening, Kyle, to a recording of Rich Friesen talking to a trader. And the trader he was talking to, he was like in a counseling session with him. And if you haven't checked out their stuff with Rich Friesen, you're really missing out. And I was laying in my bed listening to it. So this will date for you when this happened, because whenever that was released, it wasn't that long ago, a few months ago. And this guy was talking about his trading and some of the goals that he has and some of the ways that he sabotaged them. And I kid you not, guys, I was laying in bed and I just started crying because I felt for this guy so much, because I was like, dude, I have lived that. Like that is like I identify with what he feels because I have felt that. It was this weirdly emotional moment where I was like, man, that is like everybody needs to hear what he's saying, because there's some mental stuff and some like mental blocks and some things that are tied up in all that, and like a fear of success actually being a bigger driver than fear of failure and stuff like that. And um, those having those kind of moments, or being jealous for like everyone in our room to have those kind of moments, is another big part of what has spurred us towards trying kind of take things forward in this way. So let me share my screen. I'll give you guys a second to get to it. Then I'll just scroll through this and explain it a little bit. You may not be able to see it in its entirety, but you'll be able to download it here real soon. It's just a fill outable PDF. That sounds weird to say. PDF you can fill out. And if you're trying to do it on mobile, I'd actually recommend mobile might be difficult, but you'll need to have like the Adobe app, or um, like an Android on Android or Apple. You'll have to have like the Adobe app to be able to fill out a PDF like this. So we've got a handful of everybody over here. So like the start of this just talks about like some information about you, um, and like your experience and what you've been through. And then like this is a great thing to think, like how satisfied are you right now? Because part of the motivation you'll have to do the work will be identifying where you wish you were and identifying where you currently are. So the gap between where you are and where you want to be, that's really that's really where the magic happens. And then we want to kick around like uh, some areas of your approach that you at this point feel like need to be improved. And there's this section here for goals and objectives. And it's pretty short. Um, like what motivates you to pursue trading is kind of one of the ones that I think is, if you haven't sat down and put pen to pad, or in this case, finger to keyboard, and been as brutally honest with yourself as you can be about why you're motivated to pursue this. Because I'm going to tell you, if it's just to make money, um, like that is like the tip of the iceberg to what the real motivation is. I would say. Banks, you have any thoughts on goals and objectives before we move on to the next section?
No, I mean, I mean, exactly like what you said. I mean, what or like what motivates me, in trading, just for an example, like, yeah, I mean, I love to make money, but at the grand scheme of things, it comes down to just a better life for my family. That financial freedom to not have to worry about just just your paycheck coming in. It's a great thing to have on the side, and obviously it stems around money. But honestly, I would say I love trading because how hard it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because of the fact that it is a real challenge. Every day is a different day. It's a different setup, and it's a challenging thing that I just love doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you start to really put pen to paper on like your motivations, like when you said that, like a better life for your family, like, and that really, really, really puts you on point. And you start thinking about the foolishness or foolish decision. Well, you don't really make foolish decisions, but me, it puts me on where I have to think like if I do something stupid here, it's not just the numbers on the screen or the account, like it's my family I'm hurting. Um, so then we have a section on market context and an entry, and it's basically just this entire page. We're not going to go through all of this. But what this will do is it'll explore and expose for you how, if you can't articulate clearly how you derive a perspective on the market at large, and then how you contextualize that down to an area to do business, and then what makes you click the button. Now, I would say, like, the clearer you can get on what makes you click the button, you can almost reverse engineer the rest. But what's interesting is I was a really good button clicker before I was decent at market contact. Here's the other thing. And this is later in the thing, but I'll go ahead and say it. How many people? I mean, a lot of y'all were on voice today. Right? Today. I did fine. I shorted late afternoon. Um, grabbed a long. Oh, I shorted. I was still on voice and grabbed a long later, and it was fine. Made a few hundred points. But if you were on this morning, this is where I'm still growing. Right. This is where I'm still doing work. Mike Ross traded my trade plan. Now he didn't actually like. I'm not saying he traded my plan. He made his decision for himself. He traded, and it's all credit to him. But if you were on voice for the trade plan, there was some clear communication about sucking back inside of value, rotating through that value area, testing the bottom of value. Yesterday, that short trade unfolding, if we didn't hold above X, Y, and Z, and if you remember, I think I took a stab at a short here or there. Like I think I actually ended up with a couple stops until way later in the day because while I can have a great context around everything, sometimes the translation of that plan into action is really tough. Today, if you remember, was a crazy morning. I was running around, dropping kids off at school, did my prep live. Didn't have a chance to do the work before I got here. So I jump on live for 15 minutes and try to blaze through all my charts and derive out what I need for the day. It just wasn't a day where I was set up for a whole lot of success. And then you go back and I go back and evaluate the day. Oftentimes I'll find this will happen on days like this where it's like, man, plan and the notebook, just read the notebook, you would think that I retired after today because of the because of the stuff on there. But in reality, I had to be like super patient and wait. So this will help you um kind of organize how do I come up with my contextual stuff. And maybe you don't have an answer for something, and that's great. Like if you don't have an an answer for something on here, that's really good. Good that it's a great opportunity, a great place to do some work. But I think some of this stuff around like influencing your entry decisions, potential trade areas is talking about like market context, bigger picture structure, time frames that you trade on and consider. I think this is a really cool question. How often are you surprised by the market's direction during a session? So, like as it unfolds, are you like, "Wow, what the heck is going on?" Or are you like, "Yeah, that makes." Sense." So that's the market and context spot. It's a little intense. So it's not too bad. Jump, jump. Excuse me. Jumping down, next section is on risk management. I think the risk management section is, yeah, Kyle, you're right. You can also unmute and say stuff, dog. Um, yeah, it's basically it'll just about develop a trade plan as you work through it if you don't have one. So it's another thing it's handy for. But risk management is another big thing. Banks, you want to talk about risk management?
Um, yeah, I mean, in the sense of with what we put on here, I would say what the general of this, is getting at is how how risky are you for your certain trades? Like me and Baba, for instance, I tend to be a little bit more patient. I kind of wait for a certain setup. There's days where I might miss that setup where he takes it and he's in it. Like today, for instance, took a stop. Kind of on the lows on ES. It kind of had that last wick through, got back in. Um, where he was probably long that whole time. I waited for it to set back up again, and I guess it really just defines you as a trader, or you as a person in essence. There's a lot of decisions where I take where on certain setups, like I'll go to break even probably a lot faster than what most traders will do. But I'm willing to re-enter into that trade, when it sets up again. And I think that, and this is something that I've actually worked on recently. And I was talking to Bob about this. Is you know, there's not a lot of days where I have a small red day. If well, at least in the past, I mean, if I have a red day, it's not like $200 or $400. It's usually like a large amount of money, and that's something that I I've always worked on. But it was something that Bob was like, "Hey, how many red days do you have that are small?" And I'm like, that's a good freaking question because there's not many. And that's just something that is it was kind of eye opening to me where now there's rules in place where if I have three trades in a low, where I lose, I'll just cut it for the day. Yeah, and it's just one of those where it's something that someone else pointed out, and someone that I trust, and it was eye opening to hear his opinion on it, uh, because he's right. I mean, when I have a red day, it takes 2 3 green days no way in that single trade day. And that's just something that I would say risk management is probably one of the biggest factors in trading, that people, I guess, mistake. Um, Entries and exits are fine. I mean, we talk about that on Mike all the time. But if you have bad risk management and you're going in on one single trade or something like that, I mean that's just a recipe for disaster. And I don't know if you want to jump in and talk about this, but I would say this piece right here kind of is, at least in my opinion. Um, I've talked to Joel about this too. I would say the risk management piece, at least on my side, like I define myself more as like a short term scalper of a trader, at least in the past. That's something I worked about, about as well, is sizing down a little bit and then taking these trades out to like what my plan is. But that all goes with risk management. I mean, I there's trades where I can take a 2 to 1 on it, where I might take a 20 point stop, but I know potential of this trade is 4 or 5 R. Where if you don't kind of know what your risk is, what your tolerance is, um, it can be pretty dangerous in the moment.
Yeah, I remember. I can remember distinctly two. Well, I guess 3 red days. I count the 2 days following that big stretch of banging out a bunch of great trades as one day. It was really 2 sessions where I lost all that money. That one hurt a lot. Still salty about it. But the other one was exact like if I would have at least if I would have done something like this, a survey like this, filled it out, and had a conversation about it beforehand, I probably wouldn't have made the decisions I made, or at least I would have been aware that I was just totally sabotaging myself and breaking the rule if I'd have made one for myself at that point. It was a day. I think it was like 2 years ago. Thanks. I don't know if you remember this, but I called you. I got absolutely demolished. I think I was like like $3,500 red day. Um, and I know that sounds crazy, guys. I'm sorry. It happens sometimes. It was a couple years ago, but I was I was like, market shouldn't have done that. Like it shouldn't have went that far. Um, they do that all the time. So, and as soon as I finally just say that's enough's enough, then the market turns around. Blah, blah. Like I had everything that's typical excuse you could have ever heard, and I went for this walk to like cool off. I was so mad. Like I'm walking down the road talking to banks. I'm just losing my mind on the phone, and um, and then I come back and I look at the trade entries and I look at the whole deal, and just realizing that it was clear that day was the day that I got clear. I didn't solve the problem, but I got clear that I had not defined anything with risk because I thought I'm the man. Like I have a Twitter account. Like, I know what I'm doing. You know, um, people ask me questions, but I had not answered this question, and then the thing is I didn't believe the answer would help me. After I answered it, I didn't believe that answer would help me. It took some time to realize that like every time I step outside of the mismanagement parameters that I've set, it moves me further from the goals that I have. And I think that clarity helped me finally believe and begin to curb that appetite for the get back trades or the just one more, or I know I've taken this many stops or I'm down this many, or like I have a number now. Like I know if I get down a certain amount, I don't have proof in my trading to show that I can get that back. Like I've never had a day where I lost a certain number of points. I've been able to, well, I'll just tell you, 450 points. If I lose 450 points, I cannot make it back in a session. Like in that same session that I lost it in. You might think like, holy God almighty, 400. I'm just saying like 400, 450 points is the red line at the end of Baba Yaga's soul. Like that is when the computer gets turned off and I don't think about it for till the next day, 12 hours or 20 hours later, whatever it is. Like I can't at that point mentally. I know I'm spent, and risk wise, I know I'm just going to continue to be foolish. And I don't have enough examples of me taking a 400 and something point down session in the morning or something and flipping it around in the afternoon and making it all back. So it's like, dude, it's stupid to even try. Now, generally speaking, the line in the sand is much higher, but that is like the okay, you're fired. You fire yourself that day. That's risk management. Review and analysis. I just want to again say, like, thanks to Kyle and them. This was the part that we had some stuff, a little bit of stuff about this, but they really helped fine tune this, and I think that's a testament to the work that they've done in the Two Bulls room, some of the great guests they have, and some of the podcast work. But like reviewing your day, like I mentioned, like today, talking about looking back through the day, I realized like, man, my plan was great, and my execution of that plan was really poor until later in the day. And I think that this part and the like sticking to your plan is something Flary and I've spent a lot of time working on. I mean, a lot of time working. We have been on the good days and the bad days of my story and journey with this idea. But as he's I'd consider him a couple miles ahead of me in the road. As I started to see his commitment to his plans be born out of him reviewing and analyzing his work, and then leaning in on those days where he has a perceivable edge or a more perceivable edge, and then leaning into those trades through their expectancy. You garner a lot of that information by reviewing. For instance, if every time you get in a trade, you have a bracket that's set to 10 and 20. Now, if you're in the middle of revamping or reworking or working on your strategy or whatever, it might be a great form of discipline to stick to that bracket for some amount of time. But in your evaluation, if you realize that, and I think this is where Banks was, that every time I'll close out a trade at 40 points and be flat after that, I'll have two targets, 20 and 40, and then after that, I'm flat. And I realize that those trades where I close at 40, like they all go to 70 points, or they all go to 65, or half of them go to 65. And you start to figure out how to squeeze a little more out of your entries and out of your strategy. But if you don't spend the time reviewing and analyzing all that, then how would you ever know? Like how would you ever have a baseline to put that up against? So this section clues you into in or introspective and retrospective of your work. So I think this is a big piece of the puzzle. Last section, psychology and trader mindset. I'm trying to wrap up this whole official part inside of. Uh, I'm trying to get through this quick. We can be done with this and then kick around questions, chit chat, whatever. Psychology and trader mindset. I think this piece is kind of I don't know. This is in some ways people would say the strategy, the edge. That's what everybody wants to talk about. And it is important, but how much of what we've talked about, even through all the other sections, tie into the psychology part and the trader mindset? And I think that probably one of the biggest steps forward in my trading has come from the mental side and the emotional. I would say not that I've conquered all the emotional stuff, but the emotional awareness. You guys have been on when I've said, like, all right, I got to be done. Like, that's it. The funny thing is, it happens more times when I'm green than when I'm red. Because for whatever reason, there's a couple of key triggers that I have. Then I've become really aware of the physical and emotional things that start to happen inside of me right before I start doing stupid stuff. And so sometimes that will cut trading sessions short. What it has done is saved me from making really poor decisions. So this section is just to clue you into yourself as a trader. But like, I mean, again, this emotional and mental state at the end of a good trading bet day compared to the emotional mental state at the end of a bad trading day tells you a lot about how you value yourself in light of your trading. And there's something about that when we trade good, we're good people, and when we trade poorly, we're bad people. And if that is true, then there's some work to be done because at the end of the day, your trading does not define you as a human individual. There's this. It sounds a little wonky, but like you are a person who has dignity, and you are a person who brings brings stuff to the table. You contribute to the world around you. You have relationships where people value you, and none of those things are called into question. Numbers on the screen or a bar moving up and down. But a lot of times we that can be a product of trading. Um, and so how do we get ahead of that? Because from that state we do foolish things. Banks, you got any thoughts? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a big piece in the grand scheme of trading, and I think this is where the vast majority of people fail at trading. And I would say has been the biggest hurdle, at least in my trading, is the psychological piece, and the trader mindset, and just I guess noticing those type of behaviors. Um, like the good day, bad day, and kind of noticing like how you come, the kids had nothing to do, with my bad trading day.
Mhm.
But there's times where it's like you come home and you're like, why do I feel the way that I feel? And and honestly, it's just from you put so much time and effort into something to perfect it. You're never going to be perfect, at this. Um, and that's just something that I kind of threw out the door kind of early on was if it's a bad day or if it's a good day, it's it is what it is. Like I'm not going to bring either one of those home because at the same time, like, I mean, it's exactly what you said. Like, it shouldn't affect that. And just the over trading piece of this, the revenge trading, that kind of thing. Being honest with this and kind of just showing yourself, I think will be eye opening for a lot of people because like at a time, like you could be in a really good spot right now, but when stuff does go a little bit bad, it happens pretty quick, and usually that's from this piece of it. But I like the risk management piece of this. Um, it all ties together with the emotional piece of this because usually like when I was starting off, like when I would have my red days, it would be that revenge trade, no stop kind of that type of day. Those days do not work.
I remember those
Uh,
days.
those days do not work, and that'll always end up in a bad day. I mean, you might get lucky here and there, but just like like noticing like you're in a trade and the emotions that you have during the trade, which is kind of an eye opening. Once I talk to you through this and all this kind of stuff, is when you're in a trade and you start to feel those emotions, there's always going to be another trade. Usually, when you have those anxiety feelings or emotions, usually you're trading too much size. You aren't confident in where you're entering. Your risk management on the trade is usually wrong. There's a lot that goes into those trades to where if you get that feeling, I mean, if it happens to me, I'll just cut it. Like if I'm down, I'm down. If I'm up, I'm up. If I'm breaking, whatever it is, because I know there's always gonna be another trade first off, and I know that if I'm feeling that way and I continue to trade that, that's where those pieces come in where I do move to stop, I do add to a position, I average down, and I've just noticed that those are the recipes for disaster.
Oh yeah. And like I think with the psychology, trader mindset, and even the risk management and some of the stuff, like as you work through all of this and you think, and Robert sent me a message, and it's a great point. This is part of the discussion piece in all of this is that if you are, and again we're dealing with the law of large numbers and probabilities and what's probabilistic in nature to what we have observed in the marketplace, in your edge and all of that, there will inevitably be a stretch where you are doing things to your plan. And we've talked about this in the past, and you're taking your trades where you have, proven through the years that you're supposed to do it, and you still have a day that's might be a slightly red day. But if you review and evaluate the day, and Banks, we were talking about this about your trades, like, well, um, did you did you do anything stupid? Did you put too much size on? Did you move your stop in a way that you wouldn't normally? Da 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 da. Like, if none of that's true, like if you stuck to yourself and you honored, and I think this is some of the language I've really appreciated. I don't know kind of where it came from, but that I honored and dealt with myself with integrity as it relates to the work that I've put in. If that day the results weren't there, it was just a bad day in front of the screens. Like, results wise as far as P&L. But if I kept everything else in check and I just didn't make a ton of money that day, that doesn't mean that I did anything wrong. That's the weird thing about trading. Like a small red day, like you were talking about, is actually a win. Like in one sense, a small red day can be a really big win because if you are the trader who generally has either green days or massive red days. So as you go through this process and as you start to develop that, or as you hone different areas where you're already successful and improve some of the weak spots, you may start to see some things like that a little bit differently. That I can have a day that's a small red day. That's when Banks and I were talking about. Like I want to have, we want to, want to have small red days or smaller red days. To be able to pick up on the fact that like this isn't the market for me. This isn't the session for me. I'm just going to be done here. Not because I'm a failure, because I have a bad trading day, but now I'm going to be mad at my kids, or I'm going to allow this to affect my marriage or something like that. It's like, no, like I can have a small red day because probabilistically that's part of it. You know, I've had months where I've had, you know, 2 red days in the whole month. Like, those are fun months, but I've also had months where I've had many more than that, right? So, like, it's kinda just part of it, and it doesn't mean, I mean, to Robert's, message, like, there's a difference between a bad trading day and a trading day with bad results. I think that's a nuanced thing, um, important. Psychology and trader mindset goes on to talk about losses, and to talk about the emotional side of that financially. And then there's a section here where it just says, just tell us some more stuff, whatever you want to tell us about your journey, about your concerns that you have, anything like that. And then there's a section where we just ask you to tell us about the last 3 trades you took. And this is gonna, be where we would ask that, like, do it honestly, right? Like, don't just pick the 3 best ones. Like, part of this work would be able to go, okay, let's look at the last 3 trades or pick 3 trades from the last session or the last couple sessions, and then do the work of, like, why did you take it? What checked you into it? And then as you evaluate that trade, did you let it go to fruition to the targets you preset? Did you exit early? Blah blah blah. It's just a chance to process that. Something that something I think is really helpful is something that I do often is go back and look at my trades from the day. This goes back with like the evaluation piece, but for as far as evaluating your trading day, but this will help us as we look at your specific entries and exits because we can go to the chart and find them and look at when you entered and how it went and see if there's any patterns or any things that we noticed just from a few trades that might be helpful to you. Um, so that in a nutshell is the thing. I think it's 8 pages long, um, 7 or 8 pages long. And again, the idea with this would be that you work through this. Uh, Stop streaming now. But you work through this content on your own time. Like if it takes you a few days, if it takes you a week, whatever, you finish it. You send a copy to me and Banks. We go over it, and then we reach out to you and schedule a time to sit down, up on a call. Preferably not, during at least the first chunk of the day, market hours when we're trading live. We'll find a time that works, flexible with our schedules, and at least a lot like 30 minutes um, to cover this with you. And our goal is that we would be able, if we notice that um, the biggest leak for you happened to be around the review and analysis, that's a piece that you don't do anything with and you've never done anything. We're going to give you some specific things to start doing for a few weeks in accordance with that place where we feel like you would benefit the most. Obviously, obviously, it's up to you whether you do that or not. And then the idea would be, like Bank said, that we check back in either via a survey or via another medium to say, hey, how well have you done at following the plan we put together to help you improve? What about it's been helpful? What things have not been helpful? And then what can and then we kind of re we reimagine like where you are now as a trader. And we go, okay, where do we want to move next? And because that's honestly, this is all a way to foster type of relationship in a certain way that Banks and I have shared through the years, and that we would hope that you all would have either with some other people in this room or with us. And even like Mike, we'll use Mike Ross as an example. Mike Ross is someone who lives in proximity to me, as far as like geographically, so we like can connect in person, which is cool. But even with Mike Ross, I have felt at times like, man, I wish, how could I, not that he needs me because he's a boss, but like, how could I help him more specifically, more uniquely? And I found that like that just ends in me trying to explain a bunch of stuff to him while we're like looking at the computer or while we're having lunch. And it's like, there's got to be a way to systematize and like structure helping someone into a format that's repeatable and measurable and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what this was born out of. And we think this will help us achieve the goals that we have for everybody in this room, which is to be a resource to you that helps move you along your journey with trading, from where you are to where you hope to be. So I hope that you guys will take advantage of it. We're gonna and this is the thing, like we're putting this out there for everybody. So like people on trial that come in, we've extended the trial to 2 weeks. We want to be able to do this with people that come in on trial. And now Banks and I were talking, like, and if they appreciate it and enjoy it, high five us and leave the room and never come back, and hopefully it helped them. Hopefully they move forward. But if this is a way to forge a relationship with people we don't know, it helps them have confidence that we're a little bit different than most other rooms, and we really want to help people move forward, and we don't want to just throw a bunch of videos out and do a class and I don't know, like, show off what we've done. But we want to help people to a place where they're independent, moving forward towards their goals. And we realized, like, this room, like, that's what we want out of it, people. But we realized that, like, are we really achieving that? Like 5 months, 6 months, whatever we are in, 7 months, like, are we actually achieving that at the rate that we want? We know that we're achieving it to some extent, but in evaluating this room in a similar way that we were talking about evaluating our trading, we realized that, like, we've got some work to do. So it's kind of a good faith effort towards anyone that wants to come rub shoulders with us for any amount of time, in a trial. And it's also a great way for us to forge and push forward in the relationships that we have with people who are already in our room. Because this is the type of work that we want to be a part of, helping people with. And we think this is a at least a great first step in that direction. This thing will probably change in the months to come. The process may change in the months to come. But for now, this is how we want to try to eat this elephant one bite at a time. So that concludes the official portion of this, um, Thursday night, town hall. So Al, if you're recording, you can cut the recording. We appreciate that. And then I guess now, like, if anybody has any thoughts, questions, wants to kick anything around, to give some feedback already, advice, whatever, unmute, jump in. Um, we'll hang